Everybody, and welcome back to another Chivalry 2 developer stream. Today, I have two special guests. As always, I'm joined by associate producer Moon Moon, and our second special guest is Sean, who is a member of our QA team and will soon be transitioning into an associate producer role as well. Thank you for joining me, guys.
Always a pleasure.
Good to be here.
And hi, everybody in the chat. Thank you guys, of course, for joining us. As you can see on the screen, our topic that we're going to be chatting about at the beginning of the stream here is that we have a new developer or dev diary that was posted over by our friends at Game GameSpot, not GameStop. So close. If
A
you
lot of
visit,
similar names.
I know. GameSpot has a article that they posted earlier this morning that has the video there as well as some additional information. We can't show the video on this stream today, but we will be talking about it because I know that there's some exciting information in there. Namely, it name drops one map, which is Hippodrome. And as you guys can
I feel
see,
like we
yeah.
just started, like we just got the initial Notion stuff out of the way. We're already like dropping new exciting things. Like this is fantastic.
I know. We just more and more and more content all the time. I mean, that's what everybody's doing behind the scenes is always working on the next greatest thing. And what's exciting about Hippodrome is it's going to have horses on it. We're basically comparing it to the Tenosian version of Tournament Grounds plus horses. So that's pretty exciting. If you watch the video, there's some early clips of what the map is looking like during development. We can't give away too much just yet. There will definitely be more spoilers ahead. But yeah, I'm looking forward to riding around on those horses and bashing people in the Tenosian invasion or the Tenosian tournament grounds equivalent. I think that's going to be really fun.
It's like if Fighting Pit and Tournament Grounds had a baby, basically, and just let horses run around on it is perfect.
I know people have been wanting a more, like tournament-esque map that involves horses, so I think this is going to be pretty fun. I expect a lot of people to be trying to joust each other and, send each other flying.
Yeah, we knew that as soon as the update came out that people were going to want more of a horse feature in some of these kinds of maps. So that was one of our focuses. We're like, yeah, we need to kind of bring this fantasy to life and give people a chance to see it and experience it for themselves.
Heck yeah. I see some comments in the chat. Hippodrome sounds cool. I like that. It definitely is going to be cool, guys.
I remember one of our devs when we first kind of were talking about it with the LD team. We announced it to the team, and then one person's like, "So where are the hippos?"
That's the
Yeah, what is
secret of the
the?
map. We'll be introducing hippos. No, no, no. That's not true. No
Yeah,
hippos.
horses first. But yeah, for those who don't know what hippodrome is, just as a concept as well, it was generally, oh shoot, I'm going to get all my history wrong on this one. I'm not even going to say where it's from, but it was kind of like an expanded tournament grounds type place where people would have chariot races and things like that. So you get that open stadium type vibe of the past ages, basically.
Now that I've said hippo combat, I see multiple hippo
Look what
combat
we've done.
requests. Oh no. Reskin the horses into hippos. I hope that becomes like a meme with the community that we just, the map comes out and everyone's like, where's the hippos? I
I
want
have
some
high
hippo fan art.
expectations. Don't let us down, guys.
In addition to Hippodrome, we didn't give a name for it, but there's a little extra teaser in there, especially if you watch the dev diary itself, of a snow and ice biome that'll be coming to Chivalry 2 in the future. It's gonna be chilly, guys. Winter is coming. You gotta put those coats on.
Winter's coming. Yeah, we've always wanted to expand into different biomes. I think the most recent example of that is the Genosian maps, but snow and ice is something that I've always been very excited about. And without going into details, what I see that we're doing with this map is going to be new and exciting, and I'm not going to say anymore. And you guys just have to keep an eye out.
I think that generally, when it comes to new maps, we're always looking to implement new new kinds of features, new kinds of locations that we haven't explored before, really pushing the boundaries of what's possible within the realm of chivalry. And Agatha's known for being like the world of Agatha is known for being like that kind of northern, colder region. So I think it'll be exciting to explore the lore aspect of that as well, of being in the homeland. Yeah.
I think so too. And it's not just that we've been showing. We've got like it was a pretty content heavy dev diary, and I think there's like some other stuff too outside of maps. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, the guitar, for one. There's a couple teaser shots of our artists working on designing the guitar, and also one of our animators working on animating the guitar, which is a new weapon that'll be joining the 2.6 update, which is going to be awesome. I think it's unlike anything that we have so far, which, if you're noticing a trend, we're really interested in like exploring things that we haven't done before and adding a whole new experiences and whole new fun stuff for you guys to try.
It's good of you to highlight the whole new experiences as well, because we always have that challenge of if we're going to be adding a new weapon into this sandbox, it needs to stand on its own rather than feel like just another type of sword or another type of axe or something. We really want to give something that offers something unique yet is still kind of fits in the meta. And with the guitar, I think it's going to be really exciting because the way it functions, and I don't really think we're going to be talking about it too much, but there's some changes to it compared to other weapons that kind of help make it feel really different, but also like really fun to use. And I think the design team's really focusing on that and just making sure that it definitely feels unique. And we always are driven by the idea of find the fun, you know. So
Yeah, that's really one of the highlighting, overarching things of chivalry is like finding the fun and really pushing the boundaries of, you know, we give you the tools and you do with it what you will, within certain boundaries. Like there are certain rules, but we give you the tools. You can, for the most part, do whatever you want. And I think seeing new metas develop with completely different style of weapon is going to be really interesting. And hopefully it's well balanced. And if it's not, that'll be something that we revisit.
oh, definitely, and that's something we always talk about too. Is we'll do balance patches and then we'll move the needle one way or another, and then we kind of just refine into that perfect medium, and always just kind of keep that in mind when we're doing overall weapon balancing as well as for specifics and stuff too.
Yeah.
I kind of want to see if you guys have any comments on what you think the guitar is going to be like, because I want to see like initial expectations. So feel free to drop it in the comments. But otherwise, yeah, we'll have to see.
Yeah, let us know what you guys think. Are you going to be wanting to try out that new weapon? I did see one question I wanted to kind of jump on as the chat scrolling by, as we talked about weapon balance and stuff. Um, XLock27 says that they would like us to fix the Highland Sword. And that's something that we've been discussing internally. I don't have any like super duper specific stuff to talk about, but balancing the Highland Sword in general is something that we're talking about right now with the design team. So you can expect to see some changes regarding the sword in the future.
Yeah, I've been a part of a few of those meetings, and it comes down to what specifically about it that the community doesn't like, and whether it's like different aspects of it. I've seen a few comments about different things, and it's a matter of taking in those most popular comments and evaluating the kinds of changes that we can do to make sure that it's still fun to use, but also bring value to you guys as well if you're facing against it, etc. I want to highlight, yeah, that it is definitely being talked about, and yeah, that's all we can say at the moment for that.
I like the speculation about the cold map. I'm like, what kind of cosmetics might there be? Can we wear pelts and stuff like that? We won't be, giving any more details other than it's going to be snow and ice. But I like these speculations you guys got in chat.
Like, where's Frosty the Snowman? Does Santa live there? It's all the important questions that people need to be asking.
Where's the reindeer?
Where's the reindeer? Are there bears? Like,
Dead Zone 404 says that they're going to guess that there'll be a guitar on each hand. A single attack input will attack subsequentially with both hands. Mm.
Nah, no plans for magic at the moment. No.
That'll be something, Once we get through all of the different biomes and everything else, we'll see. But I don't think there'll be magic, unfortunately. Although I have heard wind of a certain spoiler that involves a little bit of magic, or a certain Easter egg that involves a little bit of magic. I actually don't know if anyone's ever seen that magic of some some characters talking behind a closed door about what they're doing.
I was wondering what you're talking about. Yeah,
I didn't
no,
want to spoil it too much.
there's Easter eggs. I was like, I think I know all of them. I don't know if I know this one, but considering I had a hand in it, I should probably know better.
I do want to mention there's not a lot to mention about this one, but in the article as well, we mentioned there will be new progression features that'll be added in the 2.6 update. So you can kind of speculate on what exactly that might mean for Chivalry 2. But we can say that it's going to be unlike anything that is in the game right now, and we're really excited to be implementing it. And yeah, I think it's going to be fun.
I like the suggestion for a big spoon weapon or an icicle sword. That's kind of cool. Let's
Oh,
see.
icicle
Yeah, we're definitely
sword.
reading your comments, guys. And as always, in the main Discord or Reddit or wherever else, feel free to post your feedback too, because we'll usually do rounds of that and pass it on to the rest of the team for them to talk about. So
See, Skull says, "Yay, new progression features is what I like to hear."
yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. We'll be talking about that soon enough for sure.
Yeah, I think even though the Tenosian Invasion content it feels like yesterday, it was last month at this point. Overall, the Torn Banner team and the Chivalry 2 team is very committed to continually adding new content. So, even if we're not being particularly talkative, it doesn't mean that we're not doing anything. It usually means that we're working on something pretty exciting, which, throughout the last month, we've been working on all this stuff, and now we're just starting to talk about it, so it's very exciting.
Don't worry, Panda. Sean will be speaking soon enough. He'll be gracing us with his voice. We have a whole other section for that. Don't worry.
Yeah. We could jump over to Sean's segment in just a moment. I'll give you guys a few more seconds just to kind of get your hippodrome / guitar related questions out before we change topic.
Yeah. And since people are asking about it as well, we'll just do the weekly or bi-weekly update that the cross-party stuff is still in progress. We don't have anything to show until we have stuff to show, so just keep an eye out for that.
Shred the guitar. What? Guitar dual wield question mark? Guitar solos. Oh, I'm getting it now. Guitar. Ah.
Yeah, I don't know that the emote has been made for it yet for dancing, so we'll just have to see. Oh, that's the other thing about making new weapons too, is it's fun because if we can, we try to do something unique with their emotes and things too. So I believe we have plans for this one.
All of the guitar related jokes now. I was so slow. I did not understand why you guys were talking about guitars.
We love Shaw, and so do we.
That's the first time I'm hearing that statement from Mark, so I don't know if he does love me.
Literally just insulting each other constantly in our Slack in the background. And then when it comes to actually matter, we're like, oh yeah, he's pretty cool, I guess.
He's all right.
Pretty sweet game collection in the background though. Like that should be part of your intro.
Should be part of my. Should I do a room tour? Should that be part of my
Go
part of
for
my
it.
segment?
You're like, what's up, guys? This is my crib. Yeah, we might as
Needs more
well.
like gaming posters and stuff though. Yeah, we could go right into it.
Yeah, so our special guest obviously is Sean, and Sean joined the team under QA, but will be migrating into a different role. So we'll kind of, touch on everything he does here. But why don't you, Sean, kind of like introduce yourself, introduce your background, and maybe where you started, where you've been throughout your time in the games industry.
Yeah, sure. So where should I start? I guess I'll start from the beginning where I went to school.
Yeah.
I went to Brock for Interactive Arts and Sciences, which is basically their game development program. So I learned most of the stuff I knew there. After that, I went to Ryerson, which is another school here in Canada. And I went there for a master's degree in digital media for a little bit of tech stuff, some business stuff. Um, Always wanted to work in games. Wanted to work in games since I was like, you know, 3 or 4 years old. And so right after school, I worked in a few places. First couple years, I mostly worked in, actually not the first couple years, what am I saying? The first year, I worked in independent stuff, including in school. I like interned at places. I did like platformers. I did some VR stuff. And then before coming to Torn Banner, actually, I worked at Glue Mobile, which is a big mobile studio that's owned by EA now, actually. And I worked there for 2 years, also in QA. I should say all my experiences in QA up until me transitioning now into an associate producer, as Shen said. But yeah, so I've been working games for 4 years now total. I think it's like 4 years semi-recently, and I've worked at Torn Banner for a year, starting a
Too
couple weeks.
long. Too long.
Exactly, too long, Mark. But yeah, I've been working for a year. I think I started actually the week after we launched. I got hired before, and then I started like the Monday after we launched, so I got to miss all the fun, all the launch fun.
Like what a whirlwind that was, though, too, eh? Like just go directly into a recently launched game, and then we're still like we weren't scrambling, but there's obviously like a lot of input that people have on the initial launch, and we're just like, okay, like get right into it.
Exactly. I remember like we were looking at like launch issues we had. Not we had a lot, but stuff at launch. I remember at the time we were working on Galencourt for the next update was coming out, and it just immediately thrown into here's the new map. Come on, we have to test this.
Do you remember what game it was? Because I had this very similar experience, like wanting to get into games from an early age. Do you remember what game it was that like you were playing as a kid?
I don't have like my first. To be fair, my first memory is playing games. My first memory is me playing Quake on like my dad's PC when I was like 3 years old.
That's a gamer through and through. That's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, like again, like I said, like it's all like there's some kids who are like, oh, like they want to be like a firefighter or they want to be like a doctor when they're like 4, or like when you're like first grade and you have to fill out like the teacher's like, oh, you're gonna do a little report on what you want to do. Like I still have mine from like first grade, and it's like I think at the time I didn't really understand game development, obviously, so I think it was like I want to make games or I want to design games. But yeah, it's just been like that through and through.
It's pretty amazing that we've come this way. I think it's nice for us because when we were growing up, it was just this like lofty ideal, and the games industry was not really what it was these days. So it was like very small, and having the opportunity to kind of develop into it is really cool. So I hope we get more discussions on kind of like our process getting into the industry and things like that, because QA really is a great starting point, I think, as well. And like QA can stand out really well on its own, but it also like gives you such a good overview of the entire project that you're working on, whether it's our game or some other game. It's a huge advantage to be in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think like certain disciplines I think do better having a QA background. Like for example, like like programmers or producers, even for like me and Mark's sake. But I think that QA is important as a background for any department. Knowing to look for those little inconsistencies and not thinking it's someone else's job like all the time is a great a great thing to have. And unfortunately, sometimes I've dealt with people, at least in the past, who the minute it's out of their hands, it's out of their hands. It's a QA's responsibility. But anyone who does have a QA background I work with, it's fantastic because they understand, like the whole process.
And I'm glad we're talking about that today, because I know like in some cases, for every bug that does make it into the game, the QA ninja team is like working in the background, and like it's like whack-a-mole, right? So you're like whacking all these ones, and then maybe one gets through. So it's like for every 5 bugs that don't get in the game, you get 1 in the game, or things like that, right? It's a challenge.
Yeah, like we have to prioritize them. Certain things have to go in at certain times. Some things are deemed more important or are more important, and like a lot of time, like if you were to look at our if all you out there had access to our Jira database, like you would probably see a bunch of bugs that you're like, oh, that one. And we'd be like, yep, we've known about it for a couple weeks now. We're trying to fix it, or we're trying to get out an update or something. But yeah.
Well, I'm excited to talk more about the process too, because I do feel like for the team size that we are, we do a pretty good job. And obviously, everything could always be better. But for what we do, I think it's good to kind of highlight that today with some of the processes that we do and stuff. So
Yeah, before we dive into like kind of the process and stuff, I did want to get into maybe some advice for people who are looking to get into the industry. So we talked a little bit about that. QA is often kind of a starting grounds, and it actually was for me as well. So I used to do QA for a small indie game, and then I did QA for Ark Survival Evolved before I started that job. So QA, even though I don't even work in QA anymore, was a launching pad for me, and I know that within Torn Banner we have quite a few cases. Obviously, Sean is one himself, where you start in QA and then you move out to a different department. Um, so this is also a question I get pretty frequently for people who are interested in being in games. Like, how do I even get started? So Sean, maybe you have some advice about, thinking back to yourself when you wanted to work in games. What were your first steps to actually getting there?
Yeah, absolutely. It's different for whatever you want to do. The kind of sucks is if it's QA you want to get into, that's at least in my as I see it, a little bit more difficult to get that experience in. If you, I know like people I went to school with who were programmers or they were artists, like or even designers. You think to yourself like, oh well, I need a portfolio. I need to improve that portfolio. For an artist, it's all about working on your craft. Programmer, same thing. QA's, sort of the odd man out there because you need something, like you need something to test, you need something to work on. But I don't think it's all that different than any other discipline in the fact that it's, I'm looking off the screen, I'm off screen because I have a screen of all my little answers. So, um, but like, yeah, I think the one of the important ones is just getting project experience. It's about, and that could be, it depends for everyone, but that, if you're in school for it, it's about getting as much experience while you're in school. Even if you're not in school, it's about working something in part time, working on a little project. I think that's very important for QA because especially because it's all about, like Mark said, is a lot of it is knowing all those, not every part of the process, but like knowing a bit of being a jack of all trades in a way, and like knowing how to test this, how to test that. And the more projects you work on, the more things you run into, the more experience you have, the more answers to questions you can now answer because you've gone through it. And then off the top of my head, some other important ones, which are also applicable to other departments, but are applicable to QA, in my opinion, are getting familiar with different softwares. QA pretty much across industry use pretty across the board the same things in most instances. Jira, which is a bug database software, Confluence, which is a documentation software, knowing your way around a spreadsheet, whether that be, Excel or Google Sheets or anything like that, like knowing any number of those softwares or getting good at them or even having any experience with them is great. It's gonna be great help in any project or if you're interviewing somewhere, for example. And then last one, which uh, is like learning additional skills that aren't necessarily part of QA. Like I know here at Torn Banner and other places, especially for QAs, a lot of time like a nice to have is like, oh, like how to program or how to do 3D art. But that also just adds into that part about knowing more than just QA. Like if you're thrown into this department, you're not gonna be completely lost. So like knowing encoding art. Mark over here knows music. That's I'm gonna assume that was part of the didn't hurt when he was trying to get a job here at Torn Banner.
I do think that part of the reason that I got hired was because of my extension knowledge, and we did this in the past stream of Wise, and I did extra qualifications on that just because I was interested in it and I wanted to specialize. So when I went into the interview and I said, "Hey, like, I can do QA work and I have some experience there, but I can also do this really particular niche thing," that ended up actually really helping a lot, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we're talking about all these like skills you need or things you need to know. I think another great positive thing is just being willing to learn and communication and all that. Like QA definitely is a soft skills discipline, and those soft skills, some people may think like, oh, I know how to communicate with people. I communicate every day, but they're deeply important, especially in QA. Like if you can't get a point across to someone or you can't talk to a dev about something, like you're going to be screwed a little bit. And so like those sort of soft skills are very important in QA. Again, important across all disciplines, but definitely for QA, they're mandatory.
to expand a little bit on what we kind of did beforehand as well, and like ways that people can get the QA experience without necessarily having to have done QA, because it's always the chicken and the egg issue where it's like you need experience, but you need that, you know. But one thing you can do really is get involved in the modding scene. You can, you guys actually have an advantage as gamers too, because you're already playing games. So if you are able to get into early access or betas and you're actively contributing, you're kind of building up building up this skill set that you can consequently go in interviews and say like, yeah, I helped particularly with these aspects, and these are the bugs that I found while testing this other game, and this is how I found it. And kind of you talk about your own process. I think that can really lend to making a name for yourself, yeah, as you do stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Another great one, maybe not specifically for QA, but it can help in sort of like getting that project experience, are game jams. You know, before the pandemic, there were some online, but I know that since the pandemic, a lot of game jams have gone right online. So you can find those online. You can sign up for them. You know, over a weekend, you can like, you know, work with a group of people to like get a project up and running. And again, like nothing looks better to someone interviewing than just basically being able to be like, I helped make this game, and this is a game that you can, you know, here's the link for it. You can go play it, and that's going to be put you heaps above, you know, the competition a lot of the time.
Yeah, there's actually quite a few QA people on our team that have participated in game jams. I haven't, but I've seen the stuff that they've made, and it's really inspiring.
Yeah, one of the best things you can do is really, you're totally right, Sean. Like, one of the best things you can do is get involved, and you can have experience, but nothing compares to actually working on something and building something, because that's when you learn about all the things that can go wrong. And I think that's one of the most important skills to actually learn is, you know, what went wrong last time, so you can make educated guesses in a QA position as to where you can kind of find the problems.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, I guess the thing is that it's not about not having any problems on a project. It's that when they arise, you know how to deal with them. And that's certain for any person who works on the game development team, but definitely for QAs.
100%, exactly.
Uh, Speaking of your job in particular to the QA, is there some part of the job that you enjoy the most, or you know, maybe one specific job that you've done that you really enjoyed?
Um, let's see. Mine's not anything specific. I just love being challenged. I love being challenged, having to learn new tools or whatever. An example I have of this, which Jen and Mark knew about, is that it was when we were launching 2.5 actually. The week of 2.5 launching, the person on our team who was responsible for launching all that stuff live was on vacation, and so I had to do it. And so I kind of knew how to do it before, but for a whole week, including that launch day on that, you know, that Sunday, I was responsible for putting the 2.5 update live, including Steam that we hadn't, including Steam that we hadn't
Yeah,
been on
entirely
yet.
new experience. Like,
Yeah,
never had to done
entirely
live.
new. I was very, very stressed. Anyone who worked with me that week could tell I was deeply stressed, but yeah, I loved it because it was a new challenge. I had to deal with new things that came up and all that. So yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I love doing, is like being like someone being like, here, have you done this before? And I'm like, no, I haven't, but I want to do it more now.
And I want to apologize too, because I was 100% one of the people adding to your stress. I was literally probably like, the community doesn't know this, but like maybe throughout that last week before launch, I was like, oh, always starting with, the community wanted this aspect to a server. And we're talking about just like small like configuration options that we had to change, or like map list setups and things like that. And you're like, oh, it didn't come like that. And I'm like, please. And you were really good about accommodating all those requests.
Yeah, there was a Mark did definitely threw a few of those at me where I was like, he'd be like, if we wait till after, it's fine. I'd be like, I'm like 90% sure I can do this. And I'd like look into it, but like, no, I can do it. I know how to do this. I figured it out. Let's do it. Let's do it
And the
first.
stressful part about anything server related too is if you forget a semicolon, if you have a typo, all of a sudden you're going to get a map that doesn't load and it's going to kick people out. But like, I think overall it went swimmingly well compared, like, as it's your first time. So I really want to give you a shout out.
Yeah, it really helped that, again, the person who's responsible for that normally gave me a lot of stuff in preparation. I didn't have to, I had to mess with a few things here and there, but overall it was sort of like set up for me to succeed, which was a huge help.
Just wanted to give a little shout out to the chat here. I see a lot about the default helmet. We totally agree with you guys. I love to play with the helmet off a lot of the time. And we have had QA go through it, and there's a fix slated. I believe it's for not the patch update, but the next big update. So you guys will should have that resolved soon enough. Yeah.
Yeah, don't worry, we know about it. Uh, it'll get resolved. I'm sorry that you have to have a default helmet in the meantime. Customization bugs are just like such a pain in the butt because people like really like to dress a certain way. So we understand.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Speaking of bugs, I have a question for you. That is, do you have a really funny bug or a I guess yeah, the funniest bug or like a funny moment while working on a bug that you'd like to share?
See, I was thinking this one earlier today because Jen sent me all these questions in preparation. I was like, oh, what's a funny bug? I was going through all my bugs. I couldn't find one of my own, but I did think of a funny experience that I always think about. It was right when I had started here at Torn Banner on Shift 2, right after we launched. And it wasn't even my responsibility. I was helping someone. A bunch of us were helping it. It was for when we were first developing horses. And someone on our team who was responsible for horses at the time had just come from a project in which they had also been for about a year testing horses. And then anytime it came up, it'd be like, in a morning meeting being like, oh, this just got changed with horses. Like someone has to check it. That person, like, it would be like, it would be like PTSD in their eyes, like, oh God, no. And like anytime anything horse related came up for like the next couple of months, it would be like, oh God. You see the person like could have. I don't think they were on camera, but you could feel their energy sort of slump down, like oh God, no.
They were such a good sport about it too, and we just ran with it. We thought it was the funniest thing.
Yeah, I think in retrospect it's funny, but yeah, at the time there's definitely part of it that was like, oh, they literally have been
Oh,
working
I did
on,
genuinely thought about it. Yeah.
yeah, in horses in video games for like 2 years now or something straight. It feels like a nightmare.
That's literally the perfect example of what we were talking about earlier, though, where someone comes in with this really niche specialty and they're like, okay, awesome. Like we can use that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I wasn't here when they got that job given to them, but it definitely was a thing of, oh, you worked on horse, you've tested horses before, right? And it was like, yeah.
I guess.
Maybe.
One funny bug that I remember and I see it brought up on Reddit sometimes is when people used to sit on a bench in Coxwell and it would make them smaller. Uh, that's just like one of those random things. I don't even remember how it happened.
I miss
Uh,
it a lot.
yeah, we. The other one was probably one of my favorites was like I think when we were working on Coxwell in the very early days, where you'd pick up a chicken and the chicken would grow and it would be like the size of the entire map. So you'd just be carrying this chicken and your whole screen would be chicken, and it was just so hilarious.
Pacific Rim Chivalry Edition. Like, oh,
Exactly. That does remind me of a funny one that I was involved with, a specific one. And it was, Mark, I don't know if you remember, if you would have helped us. You weren't in QA, obviously, but I think you may have helped. There was a bug, it was about 6 or 7 months ago, and we had this bug where it was some issue with the camera and how it worked. And so people would like grow to gigantic sizes. And there was a picture I had online of one of our testers, and they were in game. They basically were the size of, it was like an Attack on Titan sort of size, and it was terrifying to look at. But that's another example.
yeah. We saved that image. It made its way onto a team meeting slide. Like it was absolutely terrifying. It was like it wasn't just big; it was horrifying. Like,
I think we only also discovered it because you could. I think you had to be in specific. I think you had to be. I think we were on third person or something at the time, and we didn't notice it. But then every time someone swung a sword, you'd sort of see like a shadow appear like from the light source in whatever map we were. I think it was, yeah, on like Foulmire or something. And we're like, what is that? And someone changed to first person. Like, oh, it's because in first person they're like the size of a giant, and their sword is covering the sun.
needless to say, we've had a lot of fun in QA watching these kinds of things. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that I think I've said it before and I'll say it again. QA is really like the unsung heroes of game development, where um, the act of having to kind of like repeatedly go through things and regression test and tracking down issues and trying to reproduce them for it depending on how bad it is, hours or days or longer. Um, it's definitely a lot. that I'm not sure that I would want to go back to, just because it's so stressful sometimes. But QA is really like as I said, unsung heroes that make the world go around.
100%.
I was thinking that maybe we could talk a little bit more about maybe like the process of how we gather issues, how issues are triaged, kind of go through like I guess basically everything that the title of being in QA touches. So like um, perhaps we'll start, for me and Mark specifically, like some of our job is looking for issues like on Reddit or Discord, various different social media stuff, and then we will report those issues to QA, and then maybe talk us through what happens once you get an issue from us.
Sure. So, specifically for community stuff,
Yeah.
obviously, like Jen said, like it gets reported in a channel. Either we have a dedicated bug channel, or even I know in certain situations, if it's a higher priority enough, Jen will like post into our QA channel, like whatever QA channels. From there, generally we log it. A tester, like usually a tester of the like will grab and be like, oh, I'm gonna log this. Or sometimes, maybe if it gets lost in the weeds, like someone will have to poke someone and be like, hey, can you look into this? We'll first of all we'll like look at the issue on live. If it's like a live issue, we'll look at it on live, and maybe even like in a different branch in the game and be like, oh, like how widespread is this issue? See if we can reproduce it. From there, like once we know we can reproduce it, we'll log a bug for it, and a bug will have it will have the steps that we need to reproduce it. Or is there anything beforehand, we call it precondition, that is necessary to get this to occur? How often does it occur? That's called a repro rate. What's the result? Sometimes you even put expected result, like, oh, like when I do this should happen, but actually this is happening. After that's done, we actually push it off to producers. Like Mark in this situation, we'll put it in so QA basically will triage it. So we'll like determine like, oh, we think it's this impactful, it's this severe, and it's this higher priority. And then we'll go to producers, so someone like Mark, or soon enough me. It will get to our producers, and they'll sort of having that larger picture, be like, oh, is this where QA believes it to be? Most of the time it is. Like very rare does a producer like knock a bug down and say, oh, this isn't important at all. But sometimes they'll be like, oh, this is slightly actually more important. Like this is more severe. Or sometimes could be like, oh, like this is bad, but it only occurs like 5%. It only occurs like 5% of the time if you do these steps, so it's a little lower prio for now. Then it goes through the whole system. Of everyone, it gets assigned to someone. It gets assigned to whoever has to fix it. An artist, programmer, someone like that. They put a fix into it, and then the bug will come back to whoever logged it. Then it's in review. And so basically what we'll do is we'll go into a build that has that fix in it for that day. So let's say in a scenario like it gets fixed, Tuesday afternoon. I say it's my bug. I come in Wednesday morning. There's a new build that fixes on there. I'll go in, I'll check it, I'll try and reproduce it. If I can reproduce it, I'll put a little comment saying like, oh, it's still occurring, it's incomplete. I'll send it back. That the person who tried to fix it will try and fix it again. If not, and if the fix takes, then I'll be like, oh, this is all good. And then it gets put into a certain update or anything, and then we release that update and fix is there. It's no longer a problem.
Yeah, there's some other factors too where it's like, let's say on the production side, so we kind of have this nice back and forth, right? On the production side, we'll get a bug. Let's say it's the no helmet bug. We're taking a look at it. For all intents and purposes, and no helmet is more cosmetic, and so it would be more labeled like a medium. But that's where someone like Sean or I come in, or sorry, Sean, Jen, or I, or whoever's kind of working on the bug. We would go in and say like, yes, it's a medium, but also it's really important to the community. And that's where where Jen and I get to kind of highlight your wants and things too, and basically just build a case to get it upped in priority. So the Coxwell Peasants was a good one. The No Helmet, those ones were things that we really fought for, and there's a whole lot more behind the scenes that we do fight for you guys as well. And it all comes down to production priorities. So that one we highlighted, it got moved into a higher priority bucket. So that'll be coming not in the patch, but in the next update. So I'm really happy with kind of how that one was able to kind of go through the system. Yeah, sorry. I forgot I was going to say for the second part. Oh, Jen, I think you're muted on the screen.
Sorry, guys. Let me start that question over. Um, my question for Sean was that more about community-centric issues. So, in addition to community-centric issues, Sean and the rest of the QA team is also tackling issues that are in production. So, like new features, new maps, new customization, all that stuff that you guys don't see, and that stuff doesn't go through me, but that goes through production and to QA as well. So, not only are you tackling stuff that affects the live game, but also future stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely it is a juggling act. It's sort of in terms of there's a few of us, but a lot of time again when like say we have an update coming out, we have to test a lot of stuff, but then also there's times for like Mark or Jen are like, oh hey, like this problem is live, it's really it's bad, it's affecting players, it's affecting their ability to have fun in the game, and then we have to like switch off sides and be like, okay, we got to get this done, but like this is actually affecting people on the game, so we have to jump on that as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
It's such a balancing act, both from QA and production side. We have deadlines to meet. We have things that are being in development, and QA has to focus on those. But then we'll also have issues come in from the community. So we're constantly like working as a team to figure out how we can make things happen, essentially.
And there's also another piece to this, which I wanted to mention, which is the fact that we support multiple different platforms. So every fix that you do doesn't just get tested for PC, but it also, frequently has to be tested across multiple different platforms, including uh, last gen and current gen consoles. Uh, so that's a lot of different platforms to handle. And as maybe we can explain kind of like we have different people who work on different platforms and like how does that work?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, we have to handle a lot of platforms. I think as of what is it? It's 6 now. I think with Steam, EGS, and then all PlayStation and Xbox. So it's a lot. Um, Before this, even for just me, I hadn't even worked on console. I only worked on PC and mobile. So coming here and having to do with all of Xbox, PlayStation was crazy. But yeah, so here we work on so many platforms we work on so many platforms. Blah, blah, blah. There's a number of ways that we work on so many platforms at once. The first one is the fact that, yeah, like Jen said, a lot of us have a lot of the internal Torn Banner QA testers are dedicated to like one platform, and I don't mean that like they only work on PS5 or PS4. I just mean like, for example, behind my screen here, I have a PS5. My laptop right now is sitting on top of an Xbox, Xbox One, and there's a PS4 here. So a bunch of us have done a bunch of different dev kits. Sometimes, for example, you'll get poked by another QA and be like, oh hey, I checked this and it's occurring on like PS4. Can you check on PS5? And because I don't have one, can you check on it and to see if it's occurring or it isn't occurring? As well as that, we also have Torn Banner. We also have a lot of, not a lot, we have external QAs who also highly focus on console exclusively. Like they will just be on a single platform. Like a person will just test on PS4 all day, or they'll test on Xbox One, or Series X all day. And so those are like a couple of the ways that we deal with that. But yeah, it's very it's very difficult. Depending on the bug, we sort of, I think, some of the experienced members of QA, we can sometimes tell if it will affect everything or not. Sometimes you'll see a bug and you'll be like, yeah, this is impacting everything. Like this is like I can go and check all these different platforms, like every single one, but like I know that this is going to be impacting everyone. And then sometimes on the other hand of that spectrum, you have a bug where it's just impacting one. Like I had a bug I think I logged the other day where it was just affecting PS4. We checked like every other platform and it wasn't there, and it was like, how the hell, why is it only here, like what is happening? And
I
so
find these
it's
weird shenanigans with platform specific bugs, and you're just like, sometimes you can tell why, other times you're just like, no idea. Let the programmer figure it out.
exactly like as QAs, like I think not that it's our job, but sometimes we want to kind of begin to know why it's only impacting one. Like I know for me, like I'll be like, why is it only impacting PS4? And I'll be like trying to figure it out a little bit in my head, and someone's like, oh, crap, this is too in the weeds. I need someone who has a computer science degree or an engineering degree to look into this.
Another big challenge is when we have all this lead up to an actual update, and we're constantly testing on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and we don't, and like we'll get to a polished enough state that we release, but then as soon as you get it out to like the wider audience, where we're getting like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of testing hours prior to the release, all of a sudden you're getting hundreds of thousands of testing hours from people playing it. Not to say that people are testers, but it's just kind of like what the bugs people come across by playing naturally. And you're like, how do I reproduce this sometimes?
Yeah, internally QA and prod, all of us say that the best testers are you guys, the audience, because for as much time as we can all put into testing things and trying things out, like we all know that when it gets in the wild, to, like Mark said, like hundreds of thousands, millions of hands, that like stuff's gonna come up that like we would be like, I would have never even considered that occur, like that. I don't know, how is that happening? We never would have touched that if not for the fact that someone's like, oh, if you do this, this, and this, this happens.
I think we're really happy that we went with betas prior to a lot of these releases now too, because when we know that we're going to need more hands on something, we do try to get the community in early, and so we can address kind of the top issues, and that's really helped us make things a little bit better for the launches. And I think it's something that we definitely appreciate.
Yeah, we've I can't think of any particular examples, but we have definitely had betas where we have come across stuff like that, and then we've been able to like either, I think sometimes we've been able to get it fixed for the final release, or or even if not, the final release, we're able to get that first hot fix right after that update, and then it's affecting you guys as little as possible for the shortest amount of time.
We have about 10 more minutes left. I actually wanted to touch a little bit on about your transition and, basically how that works within Torn Banner, because I mentioned a little bit earlier that we've actually had quite a few times where somebody will start in one department and move to another, and that's what I think is really kind of a bonus and an interesting part of working at Torn Banner Studios, is that depending on your skill set and your interests, you're able to kind of migrate through different departments. So several weeks ago, we interviewed one of our character artists, who mentioned that he also did work in environment art, but liked doing character art more, so that he transferred over there. So now we have, oh, that, and also we had one of our LDs who started in QA. Now he does level design. Um, so there's a lot of different cases where you can start doing QA and move somewhere else depending on your interests, or you can kind of just move up the ranks, basically. And I think it's really interesting that Torn Banner is a company that allows people to move freely within the studio, and move based on their skills and career desires, yada yada yada. Uh, what maybe was the process of you moving into a new role, Shawn, you in particular? Did you just feel like you had more responsibility, or did your responsibility get recognized? Whatever.
When it comes to me, and especially the associate producer, basically what happened here was that a position opened up for an associate producer. I had wanted to be a producer since I had been in school, but most of the time, most people don't graduate and then become producers unless maybe you're working at like a huge global dev team, like maybe an EA or something. But for the most part, seems like Torn Banner size, we don't hire like someone with zero experience basically in that to get it. So yeah, I had to interview everything, and then I got it somehow. I don't know how it happened, but I don't know. But I got it. And then yeah, so then transitioning, I'm still in the midst of transitioning, as like I think my title under me says, it's like slash, it's
Yeah,
senior
I gave
QA
you
tester
both.
slash. Yeah, slash. I next month I fully transitioned. So basically, what that entails is that I've been the last couple weeks and for the next month, I'm like handing off my tasks, my QA centered tasks to other QAs, training them in how to do that if they don't necessarily know how to do it already, and then getting more prod things on my plate. So like sort of as the QA stuff lessens, the prod stuff increases until about a month from now I'll be full associate producer and then no QA things.
I think it's nice to mention as well that even though you're moving into a new position, the company is expanding so much that it's not going to be a vacant position that you're leaving. So we actually have like more QA coming in as well to help with the project too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's not a matter of like, oh, the QA team is now down a person and we can get less they can get less stuff done. Like Mark said, we've actually just like this week, I think, hired like two new testers like that are coming on. And so like, yeah, it's I'm very happy to, because I've unfortunately in other companies had to leave, and that's what it feels like. Is you're like, that's when I fully left a company, but you're leaving and it feels like you're just like throwing all your stuff at the other people you work with, and you're like, oh, see ya, there you go. But in this situation, thankfully, that is not at all the case.
Yeah, we're only getting bigger. It's a really exciting time for us.
I do want to give you one more question about your new role. About maybe people in chat don't necessarily know what associate producer does. I know Mark's or Moon's been talking about it in previous streams, but maybe talk us through what kind of stuff you will be doing and what your role will entail.
Oh yeah, sure. So for those who don't know, producers are producers, they manage different teams. They I guess actually the best way I can say it is that producers' jobs are to make sure that all teams can work at their peak efficiency, and if that means dealing with issues with to make sure that like they're working things in the right order, or making sure efficiencies are at the top. So basically, we're just there to help ease a load off of teams so that they don't have to deal with this or this, that we're managing those things and they can do what they do best. Programs can program, artists can do fantastic art, QAs can test all they want. They're not bogged down by yeah, maybe Mark could more accurately detail it, but
I think you already did an amazing job on that one. I was like, oh, how do I top that? Let me, let me think about that. Now, for me, I have always considered a producer, maybe in my role specifically, as an information holder and an information passer on, or I guess like between different teams. And having a producer for different teams means that we can very quickly have a good knowledge of every part of the project and pass information between each other really quickly, so that it goes from the producer to the appropriate people within the sub teams and things like that. So we're very lucky at Turn Banner to have more of like a horizontal type of organization, where it's like we don't have people over each other or under each other really, and it's all just more of a collaborative effort. And that's why I say information holders, because we're not above or below anyone. We just have information that's useful to different teams, and we kind of pass that along. We also help with just kind of like the organizing and managing between the bugs and the tasks, and making sure all of our deadlines are getting met, or as close to met as possible, and kind of going from there. Yeah.
Yeah, the one other thing you may have said it is just like helping people understand priority of their issues or tasks that they have. You know, especially when it comes to meeting certain deadlines, obviously. You'll get a list of stuff to work on and you may not know like when should I have certain things done. So I would, that's obviously something that a producer would help with.
It's also a fun challenge as a producer as well, because in the world of anything, shit happens. And one of our challenges as well is making sure that when stuff does happen, because it inevitably will, that we can pivot and kind of figure out what our next best option is. And we're constantly doing this problem solving, very similar to how you would do it in QA as well. So QAs have their own set of problems pertaining to the game. And then when you get into a producer position, it's the same kind of thing, but solving problems pertaining to the studio or the development process. And I guess that's kind of the best way to describe that.
yeah, I definitely agree with Mark. I've always seen QA and prod as being very similar in a lot of ways, in terms of, yeah, like having to prioritize stuff, knowing a bunch of everything, being a jack of all trades. Yeah.
That's why I love it too. It's just like um, I'm so passionate about production and about the company and about the game, and it's just kind of the optimal position to be able to kind of have your finger in everything. And yeah.
I want to give chat a few minutes to ask any questions specific to QA or to Shawn in particular. Uh, Shawn as well, if you have any last things that you'd like to add, feel free to go ahead. I won't put you on the spotlight too much if you don't, but go ahead.
Uh, No, throw the questions at me. Give me the questions.
What's
Okay.
your favorite class, Sean? Is my question.
What's my
Oh.
favorite class? Vanguard, all the way.
Vanguard. All right. Yeah, he's pretty. You know what? I never played Vanguard a lot at launch, and then I've slowly been moving into that as my like second favorite.
I've always used it when we've had internal playtests and when I've been playing on my own time on live because I find it, even though I don't think, I mean, it is a little, I find it the fastest. I just kind of like to dip and dodge and sort of dip and dodge and attack. Like that's sort of my play style. So that's what just works for me.
I think I started playing Vanguard at the beginning a lot as well. And then I like Archer too. It's gonna get me flamed, but I do like to play Archer. Chat's saying
Archer's
knight.
yeah.
Everybody's saying knight in chat, so they don't agree with
I'm a
us.
knight personally as well. Well, actually, I'm a peasant, but if peasant's not an option, then I'm a knight for sure. Yeah,
Oh
Archer.
no. Archer triggered.
I think it's fun as a new player to kind of play Archer because if you're used to first person shooters, then Archer's kind of like you're starting, and then you do a little bit of melee to that, or you can go jump right into the knight fantasy if you really want to as well. And it's actually like with the longbow, it's pretty hard. Like I know we've done a lot of balancing over time, and we're always looking at that still too. And personally, I'm just big like overarching personally right here. Well, sorry, as I feel like the longbow is actually pretty weak right now. Like you can get some small hits off, but then you have like compared to the other ones, it's yeah. I can't wait for the controversy in the chat. This should be interesting.
What do you think your skill level in game is like, Sean? Do you feel like you're pretty good?
Uh, it's a good question. I do feel that because we have to play it more often, that QA's sort of skill level is the minimum is a bit higher. I think I put myself maybe middle high in terms of the QA team, and then maybe more middle in terms of the whole team. We have there's one person who Jed and know who I'm talking about on the QA team who is probably the best player at Torn Banner.
Yeah, it's a QA person.
It's
Yeah.
a QA person, and they are deadly. Everyone makes jokes that when you see them, you might as well just F10. You might as well F10 because you are not getting away without a fight.
And it's not any of us, to be clear. Like I wish, I can only wish I were that
Yeah.
good.
If it was me, I would be like, it's me. I'd be like, it's obviously me. I'm not gonna hide that.
And I mean, I
It's not.
tease you, but I would 100% admit that if that was the case.
So good. Uh, the talk about the peasant thing. The I think I actually I should talk about it before we end the stream. Is that our next update, which will be 2.5.3. We talked about it a little bit last stream. The patch notes will come out, relatively around the time that the patch will launch. But I did want to mention that in that one will be the Coxwell peasant fix, which I saw mentioned in chat, where you don't spawn as a peasant during the last stage. So that'll be fixed. And we talked about it a little bit last time. We also have map balance changes for Aberfrau, Bodwin, and Ascane Deer in there, as well as some crash fixes and some other fixes. But as I said, the full patch notes for that will come out around the release date for the patch, which is not yet announced. But when I know, you will know. And outside of that, we also have 2.6, which we're still working on, which we talked about a little bit at the beginning of the stream. And I will post it again right now in chat, which is a new article that came out today that talks about some upcoming features for Chivalry 2. So if you missed that, definitely check out the GameSpot article.
The patch mentions actually a really good moment to highlight what QA does as well. Because if we're going to, our goal as a company is if we release something and we have some issues with it, we do want to release a patch as soon as possible. The challenge with releasing a patch as soon as possible is every time a fix is made, especially when we want to have a quick turnaround time, we have to make sure that QA goes in and gives it enough attention that we're mostly confident that it's going to be okay. And so there's a lot of pressure on QA as well to get that stuff in, right?
Yeah, just speaking from QA's perspective, like I get some people, maybe not a lot of people watching, but you would think that, like, for example, if we're just releasing like a hot fix, that we're not doing as many checks. That's not true at all. Basically, we do all the same checks that we would do for a full ass update, and it's only smaller because there's just less stuff in it. But we're, if for 253, like Jen's talking about, like we have done just as much testing as if for 2.5 in terms of the structure of like having to check these things. Happily, it's not as much stuff in the middle because when I don't want to do 2.5 testing again. There was so much, but yeah, like it's a lot, and but we just want to get a product out that is good as possible without causing you guys any more issues.
Yeah. As with any complex game, basically, anytime a change is made, it could break things in unexpected ways, just because there's always such a fine balance between all the code bases, basically, to make things work. And so, yeah, it's an absolute necessity to get QA in there and do all those checks, just to make sure that we are improving the overall stability and state of the game. That being said, we do have that patch coming pretty soon, so we'll have more to talk on that soon.
Yeah, like I said, as soon as we know a date for 2.5.3, you'll see it on our social media. And in between now and then, we'll be working on it, working on future updates. Yeah, that's what we're up to. I want to say thank you so much for Sean and, of course, Mark for joining me today. I want to thank everybody in the chat. We had some really good questions this time around, and I appreciate you guys hanging out with us for our bi weekly dev streams. And I hope that we see you in the next one.
You guys are great as always. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys.